Sometimes, love doesn't explode. It doesn't shatter glass or leave bruises on the walls. Sometimes, love simply changes direction. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn were once spoken of in the same breath. Their names intertwined in whispers, fan edits, late-night theories, and soft expectations. To the outside world, they looked steady, two souls walking side by side, unhurried, untouched by the chaos of fame. But what fans didn't see was the moment when one heart began to lean elsewhere. Not out of cruelty, not out of betrayal, but because sometimes someone new feels lighter. This is the story of the slow drift, the unspoken comparison, and the quiet realization that one love is no longer enough when another appears to be better. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn didn't fall in love dramatically. There were no grand confessions under the rain, no desperate chases through airport terminals. Their connection was comfortable. They laughed easily. They understood each other's silences. They knew when to speak and when to let the moment breathe. Boat was the grounded one, thoughtful, observant, often carrying the weight of responsibility without complaint. O was warmth, gentle smiles, easy reassurance, the kind of presence that made chaos feel manageable. Together, they felt balanced. For a long time, that was enough. It didn't start with distance. It started with comparison. One of them, quietly, almost guiltily, began to notice how another person listened differently. How conversations flowed more effortlessly. How laughter came quicker, lighter, without effort. This new person didn't know all the old stories, didn't carry shared history, didn't come with expectations. And that was the danger. Because history can feel heavy when you're tired. They still showed up together, still smiled for cameras, still spoke in familiar rhythms. But inside, one heart was already standing at a crossroads. With Boat/Oat, the one being left behind, love felt deep, earned, real, but demanding. With the new person, love felt easy, exciting, full of possibility. And the most painful truth? No one was doing anything wrong. Is love supposed to feel this heavy? That question haunted quiet moments, late nights, long drives. The one drifting away hated themselves for thinking it. Because how do you explain that someone you love deeply is no longer the person you want to grow old with? How do you justify choosing better when what you already have is good? The one being left behind noticed first. Not because words changed, but because energy did. Texts came later. Touches lingered shorter. Eyes wandered during conversations. There's a special kind of pain in realizing someone still loves you, but is no longer choosing you. They didn't accuse, didn't demand answers. They waited. And waiting sometimes hurts more than the truth. The new person never meant to be a replacement. They didn't arrive with intention. They didn't ask to be chosen. They simply showed up, kind, attentive, emotionally available in ways that felt refreshing. And unknowingly, they became the mirror that reflected what was missing. The confession wasn't dramatic.
No shouting.
No tears at first. Just a quiet sentence spoken with trembling honesty. I think I'm changing. That sentence carried more weight than any breakup speech ever could. Because change isn't something you can argue against. What followed wasn't hatred. It was grief. Grief for the future that had been imagined. Grief for the love that still existed but no longer fit. The one being left behind didn't beg.
Didn't compete.
Didn't ask to be chosen over someone else. They understood something devastating. Love that has to be fought for is no longer love, it's survival. To the public, nothing seemed wrong. Smiles remained. Photos still circulated. Silence was mistaken for peace. But fans sensed it. They always do. The chemistry softened. The closeness shifted. The certainty faded. And suddenly, questions filled the spaces where answers used to be. When the decision was finally made, it wasn't announced.
It was lived.
One person stepped forward into something new, hopeful, nervous, free. The other stepped back, heartbroken, dignified, still loving. And neither of them was the villain. The one who moved on felt guilt mixed with relief. The one left behind felt pain mixed with pride. Both had to relearn themselves without the familiar presence of the other. Some days were easier. Some nights were unbearable. But healing doesn't follow schedules. This isn't a story about betrayal. It's a story about emotional evolution. About how loving someone once doesn't guarantee you'll love them forever. About how choosing yourself sometimes means hurting someone you never meant to lose. And about how letting go can be the most respectful form of love. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn's story, real or imagined, reflects something painfully human. Love doesn't always fail because it's broken. Sometimes it ends because it has done its job. And in the quiet aftermath, both people walk away changed, carrying memories that will always belong to them. Not as regrets, but as proof that once they chose each other, and that was real. The morning after everything changed didn't feel dramatic.
No thunder. No rain.
Just silence. One side of the bed was untouched. One phone remained face down on the table, unread messages glowing quietly on the screen. For the one who chose to leave, freedom felt unfamiliar, almost heavy. For the one left behind, absence echoed louder than any argument ever could. Love hadn't ended with anger. It ended with acceptance, and somehow that hurt more. Moving on is often romanticized. But the truth is, it's lonely. The one who stepped toward the new person realized quickly that starting over meant explaining everything again. Favorite foods, childhood fears, emotional triggers. The comfort of being known was gone. And yet, there was excitement too, because this new connection didn't carry old disappointments. Still, guilt lingered like a shadow. The one left behind didn't collapse publicly. They showed up to work, smiled politely, answered questions without revealing too much. But in private, they mourned a life that would never exist. They replayed conversations, searched for the exact moment where everything shifted, wondered if loving harder would have changed anything. It wouldn't have. And deep down, they knew that. In the world of both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn, privacy was a luxury. Fans noticed the changes immediately. The missing interactions, the distance in shared spaces, the way names stopped being mentioned together. Speculation exploded. But what fans didn't see were the sleepless nights, the quiet self-blame, the effort it took to remain graceful under scrutiny. Heartbreak is difficult. Heartbreak under a spotlight is brutal. New love is fragile. The one who moved on quickly realized something painful. Happiness built on the end of something else carries weight. The new person sensed the hesitation, the emotional pauses, the moments when the past still whispered. And one night, they asked the hardest question. Are you really here, or are you still leaving someone else behind? That question forced honesty. Closure isn't always mutual. Sometimes it's one person learning to let go without an explanation that feels complete. The one left behind didn't get a final conversation that solved everything. They got distance. And they had to turn that distance into strength. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in moments. The first day, they didn't check their phone. The first laugh that didn't feel forced. The first realization that their life was still meaningful alone. They learned that love ending doesn't mean love was wasted. Time passed. Months. And then, fate intervened quietly. A shared event.
A familiar holga.
Two people who once knew each other better than anyone else, standing face to face again. There was no bitterness. Just a shared look that said, "We survived." They spoke politely,
Carefully.
and for the first time, there was peace. No apologies were demanded.
No accusations thrown.
Because both understood something rare. They had loved each other the best they could at that time in their lives. And sometimes that is enough. The one who moved on became softer, more aware of emotional responsibility. The one left behind became stronger, more confident in their own worth. Loss reshaped them both, not as punishment, but as preparation. Eventually, fans stopped asking. They moved from speculation to respect. Some stories don't need explanations. They only need time. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn were no longer a what if. They were a what was, and that mattered. This story doesn't end with reconciliation. It ends with growth. With two people walking separate paths, carrying lessons instead of resentment. Love didn't fail them. It taught them. And sometimes, that's the most beautiful ending of all. Years passed quietly. Not the kind that announce themselves with milestones, but the kind that slip by while people learn how to live again. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn no longer existed in the same sentence the way they once had. Their names appeared separately now, each attached to different projects, different smiles, different lives. Time didn't erase what they had been. It simply placed it gently in the past. The one who walked away found what they thought they needed. Stability.
Ease.
A love that felt lighter. From the outside, it looked like the right decision. But quiet moments have a way of revealing truths that daylight hides. Sometimes, in the middle of laughter, something felt incomplete. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. And that was when memory would return, not painfully, but persistently. The one who stayed behind rebuilt slowly. They learned to enjoy solitude without feeling abandoned. They discovered parts of themselves that had been hidden inside compromise. New love came eventually. Not rushed, not desperate, but careful. Still, there were nights when a familiar voice echoed in their thoughts, reminding them of a time when love felt effortless. They didn't miss the person. They missed the version of themselves they were back then. Both found success. More recognition. More opportunities. More applause. But success is loud. And intimacy is quiet. In moments when the world went silent, both realized the same truth from different sides. Some connections change you in ways nothing else ever does. Regret didn't mean they wanted to undo their choices. It meant they understood the cost. The one who left sometimes wondered, what if better was just different? The one who was left sometimes wondered, what if loving less would have made it easier to stay? But wondering doesn't rewrite history. It only deepens understanding. There was a night. Just one. A phone in hand. A name glowing on the screen. Not to reunite. Not to confess love. Just to ask, are you okay? The call was never made. Some bridges are meant to remain untraveled, not out of bitterness, but respect. Love had changed for both of them. It became quieter. More realistic. Less idealistic. But memory stayed vivid. Not as longing, but as acknowledgement. They had once been important to each other. That didn't disappear. Years later, fate crossed their paths again. No cameras this time. No audience. Just two people older, wiser, calmer. They spoke briefly. Smiled sincerely. And for the first time, there was no sadness underneath. Just gratitude. They never said, I loved you. They never said, I'm sorry. Because those words had already lived in their actions. Sometimes, silence is the most honest language. Everyone has a life they didn't choose. A love they didn't keep. A future they walked away from. Both Yongyut and Oat Pasakorn became part of each other's unchosen lives. Not as mistakes, but as chapters. And the truth is, some people don't stay forever. But they stay inside us, quietly shaping who we become.